Welcome back everyone, welcome to another Evasion Series video, and this week we are breaking down Apex Zinogre. Definitely one of the most annoying monsters, but his hunt solo is actually quite fun. So particularly I'm going to be focusing this video for those of you trying the Apex emergency hunt. If any of you are attempting it, it's quite a challenge but very rewarding to finish. So just like previous videos in this series, I'm going to be pointing out some of the cues and tells for some of Zinogre's big attacks, and then how to dodge them. So without further ado, let's grab a wire bug and head on out. So starting off, Zinogre actually doesn't have a roar at the start of the hunt like most other monsters, so we'll come back to talking about his roars. So at the start of any hunt, you are clear to just go ahead and start attacking. First of the attacks that we're going to talk about are his bite attacks. Now these are very simple, just like most other monsters. They usually raise their head a little bit and then they just take a half step forward and bite forward. Zinogre pretty much has the same thing, although he has two types instead, one small one and one big one. The small one is just where he raises his head and shoulders up on one side just for about a second and then he bites forward. The big one, actually he raises his whole head and lifts both of his arms up and stands on his hind legs for about a second, and then he sort of dives his body forward and bites forward. If he's charged, this biting attack will also have a little bit of an area effect damage. For Apex Zinogre, if you don't have flinch free, these bites will knock you or flinch you back instantly every time. This is just something to be aware of because later on, this attack can be the cause of many carts, since Apex Zinogre does this attack quite often right before one of his bigger attacks. Now moving on to his second most simple attacks, the claw attacks, and he actually has three main claw attacks. The first one is a big smash with an energy orb around his claw. This attack has a decently sized radius of explosion and is usually a single smash attack. The arm that he's going to smash with creates a giant orb of energy, and it's the one that gets raised into the air along with his whole body, so he's almost standing up on his hind legs. Once that arm reaches the top, he lets out a low growl just before smashing. These are the indications that you're looking that it's the big attack, right? And dodging it is pretty straightforward. He generally tends to smash right in front of him, maybe a little bit tilted to the opposite side arm as well, but you can roll to either arm. Rolling to the side of either arm will get you to safety, and it actually gives you a little bit of time to damage while he resets. Rolling backwards or away from him is actually the worst option. He actually extends this attack quite far and will close a big gap to smash you, so the farther you're moving away generally isn't worth. You can see in this clip right here, I'm trying to back away, but I'm definitely not far enough. I'm still quite a bit of a good distance, but I still get hit. So definitely the most ideal places are to just move to the side of his arms and then get some damage when he lands. The second claw attack is a smaller claw attack, a little bit less damage, a little bit quicker, but he does a double claw smash. So this attack starts in a similar fashion with one of his claws suddenly lighting up and glowing yellow. However, he won't lift his whole body and stand on his hind legs. That's your indication that he's going to do two claw smashes instead. So to reiterate, if you see his claws glowing but he's not getting up on his hind legs, he's going to do two claw smashes. Now one more hint that you can look out for is that usually he'll do a little spin just before charging his arms. Just another indication or a cue to you that he might be doing the double attack. Now the third claw attack is more of a ranged attack where he launches 3 energy blasts on the ground from his claws towards you. He'll usually back up a little bit before launching this attack, and the key is to not roll here, and instead just walk in between the attacks and you'll be safe. So your indication that this claw attack is coming is, again, the claws will be glowing and he'll lift up his body a bit, but not as much as the big smash, just a little bit, and he actually tucks his head into his body. That's the clear sign that this attack is coming. He will launch the attack after about a second and he'll do a body flip just kind of show off, but the main attack will be coming directly toward you. So as long as you walk between the moving blasts, you'll be completely safe. Again, do not roll. There's not enough space between the single blasts to roll unless you're on the outside. If you're on the far outside of the attack, go ahead and roll, then you're safe. Now, Zinogre is a doggo, so let's talk about some of his tail attacks. The forward flipping attack is one of his most common. He'll hop back a little bit or kind of reposition to look at you, and then he jumps, sending his tail forward. If he's charged up as well, he's also going to let out a little bit of an energy blast that's going to go forward. The attack is quite easy to dodge though. Just move to the side, whichever side you are closer to from the center. So if you're more on the right of his body, just move to the right and vice versa. It's also a pretty easy attack to iframe for some reason. The hitboxes on his tail just are pretty narrow, they're not as big as his other attacks. One of the best indications for this attack is if you have character voices turned on. Your character will actually give a warning to you saying that there's some big attack coming, and that's when he does his attack. Now just keep in mind that it's not really a big attack in his normal charge state, but when he changes to Berserk Charged Mode, which we'll discuss later, it does become a little bit more devastating of an attack. Speaking of flipping, let's talk about the second tail attack, which is the Flipperoo tail smash. Now this one, I like to kind of pretend that he's kind of like giving you the cold shoulder and he's ignoring you. He'll pounce away a little bit, landing sideways and kind of take a glance at you, and then he'll do a whole jump flip and land his tail on your location. When he glances at you, that's when the attack location gets locked, so you basically want to wait until that moment when he jumps for the second tail smash to dodge or roll, because then he won't be repositioning his attack. So it's a pretty straightforward attack, and honestly, as long as you're really moving to one side, just staying in that direction and you'll dodge it without even rolling. The final tail attack is actually again another ranged attack, and you can call this one the energy ball attack. He'll growl at the start and raise his tail over his head, and this is usually done when he's a little bit of a distance away from you. Then he does 2 flips, and each flip ends with his tail being pushed out and launching some electro balls in front of him. The first ones land about 2 steps in front of him, and the second set lands even further. So the best way to take advantage of this attack is to actually get as close as possible as you can to him. It gives you a large amount of time to damage if you're close enough, since really this attack only damages far away. The whole flipping animations near and close to him don't have a hitbox, so you're safe as long as you can get up close to his legs. As I mentioned though, he likes to do this attack when he's a little bit distant from you, so you have to close that gap. So speaking of distance, this is actually one of the attacks that he follows up with when he does his charged running attack. So sometimes Zinogre will just like to charge himself and run forward. It's kind of like him just repositioning or like creating some distance or kind of just resetting himself. But if you are in his path when he's running and charged like this, he will knock you over. Usually right before he starts running, he likes to tuck his head in a little and kind of pull his whole body back. Kind of almost as if he's holding the ground, revving himself up and just readying before he just sprints forward. That's your indication that his directional path is set and you just need to move to the side. Oftentimes, he'll follow this attack up with another attack, one of which being the final tail attack that I just mentioned, the triple energy balls. Another one is his basic pounce attack, so he'll finish running, turn around, look at you, and then he just likes to jump and try to smash you. Not a very damaging or like hard hitting attack, but it will like hurt you a little bit. So just be aware that once he finishes running, he's going to follow up with something. Moving on now, back to some of the closer up attacks. The hip check is one of the most widely painful attacks. This hitbox is pretty big for a hip check. Zinogre likes to do this at random between attacks, but generally not mid-combo. How he'll start off is he'll take a half step backwards, or not really a half step, but he just kind of like distance himself a little bit, and his front arms kind of take a half step, but they move back a little bit. He kind of angles himself as if he wants to hit you from the side of his body, and he'll also pull his head down into his chest, and that is your key indicator. A few other attacks position his body this way, but the head into his chest is the clear indicator of the hip check. Once he stops pulling himself back, you have about a half a second before he launches the hip check. Now, in addition to having a wide hitbox, he also launches himself pretty far. So again, if you're backing up, you need to be at least 2 rows away from him. That's the safest spot. If you're just like a couple steps or one, you're going to get hit. He can launch himself pretty far. If you can't back up more than 2 rows, the next thing you need to do is aim for the tail. Under his tail is the next safest spot. If you're much closer to his head though, roll for the tip of his head. These are the 2 safer spots. But you basically need to aim these like an iframe, which can be very difficult. A good trick to roll is to actually listen for his high-pitched squeal. The sounds of his, I think, electrobugs or something on his back change frequency just as he's launching the hip check. And if you roll exactly when you hear that change, you will be able to iframe this attack. Now, this is a very difficult attack to dodge, so if you can't, I actually recommend countering it because it is perfect for countering. It's a very direct attack and it's single hit, and he takes a little bit of time to kind of reset himself a little bit afterwards, so you have time to damage and then reset yourself. Next up on the docket, we have his Breakdance attack. Now, this is one of the coolest attacks in my opinion. The Breakdance starts off with a little kind of similar to the hip check. He'll pivot himself back, but this one is more of a slide instead of a step. He positions his body sideways to you, but this time he lifts his head upwards and gives a quick roar which lasts about a second. That's your indicator that he's going to do the Breakdance instead of the hip check. After the roar, he does a spin, sort of like moving his tail around himself, and that can hit you, so be aware. You need to be backed up by this point. So he does the whole Breakdance move, kind of like takes a spin, and then he launches himself into the air, and then the attack is cleared to engage on. He can do this from both sides, so you have to watch which way or which arm he pulls back. Your goal is to move to the opposite arm of the one that he slides back, and also be about one roll distance in front of him. So taking this clip as an example, if he's pulling his left arm back, like here, I move to his right arm and give myself that one roll space in front of him. He does the flip and then he lands directly in front of me. So his landing position is actually pretty predictable. It's just a little bit to the opposite arm and a little bit forward. The landing has no damage, so you can go straight into attacking, and if you're able to predict where he's going to land, that gives you an extra window of damage time. One of the last unique moves that I want to mention here is the ground upward explosions. This one is a really interesting attack. The ground below you lights up in a horizontal line, just has like energy balls like occurring and like lightning on the ground there, and you'll see it. It's about 2 seconds that it lasts. Zinogre then does a front flip jump, and the lightning blast bursts from the ground into the air. Now, you're pretty safe if you're outside of the highlighted spots on the ground. However, dodging to the side or the back is where you need to go. Never towards him, never in front of him, because that front flip attack is also going to hit you. He always does 2 of these blasts in a row, so just keep moving to the side or the back until the second one occurs, and then you have some time to return some counter damage. And that's about it for the basic attacks of Apex Zinogre. Now, he does have a supercharged mode, which I like to call the Berserk mode. When he's charged into this second state, this is when he actually has a stunning roar. His eyes light up right before the roar, and you'll see it. So if you see his eyes light up, time to back it up. Back it up. However, just like most monster roars, you can counter this if you're within range, and time your counter appropriately. Since he does this like mid-hunt though, it is kind of up to you whether you want to counter and keep damaging, or you want to use this roar moment to kind of reset your buffs. Now, in Berserk mode, Apex Zinogre adds or modifies certain attacks as well as starts to combo certain attacks. So in this video, we'll quickly point out the main ones. One of the attacks that he adds to his arsenal is the Backflip Smash. Now, regular Zinogre does this when he's charged up, so for Apex, it's when his eyes are glowing. He'll pounce into the air and do a flip and then land on his back. In order to dodge this attack, you really need to be about 2 rolls away from him. You can start off by like walking and then rolling as he lands. And the main reason for making this distance is because in addition to the ground smash, he also has lightning that pops up from the ground. So even if you iframe the smash, you might get hit by the lightning coming up. So it's better to back it up and distance yourself. Now, unfortunately, there's also no real indicators of him other than the fact that he's in the air. Like, he's going to roar after, and then he's just going to jump into the air. And that's your best indication that he's really going to use this attack and smash on you. However, he does have a pattern of launching this attack after a triple ground laser attack. So one of those claw ranged attacks that I mentioned previously. So just be prepared. He likes to follow this attack up with the body flip. Any of the other ranged attacks as well, he might just jump and flip onto you. Kind of his way of getting back into the fight. Since this is a follow-up attack, when he roars, that's when he sets his location. So it's a very quick roar in between attacks that you gotta listen for. After he lands though, you have a very big opening to hit his body part, so take advantage of that. This attack is also counterable, so if you want to, sit there, plant yourself, counter, and then he's just going to be on the ground and he can't move, he's on his back, so you got some time to damage, my friend. So that's one of the only attacks that gets added. Other attacks do get changed up and they start to combo a bit. One of the changed attack is the tail forward flip attack. Usually he just flips forward and sends his tail forward and then he lands. In Berserk mode, he will actually catch himself mid-air. Disclaimer, I don't know how physics works here. Apex Zinogre can fly or levitate or something. But yeah, so when he's doing his flip, he's going to tail flip forward. Then he's going to catch himself in the air and redirect himself to do a claw smash down on you. It is a great attack to counter since afterward he also takes a moment to reset and he kind of lets out a roar, so you have plenty of time to attack. This is the attack that your character also gives the voice command saying something big is coming. This is why when he's in his charged berserk mode, he changes this attack into like a flipping tail and then claw smash all in one motion. The other Flipperoo tail smash attack also does combo into a claw smash, but it's not the big lightning claw smash, it's just a regular claw smash, so just be aware that this can happen. That's about it for the combined attacks. Nothing else is very prominent, so as the ones I just mentioned are the main ones that you need to be aware of. You should also be aware of though that his attacks can become instant kills when he's in berserk mode. Any of the energy laser attacks can be very devastating, such as the ground laser attacks or the explosions. They become instant kills, so you gotta watch out. Like, he just deals a whole ton of damage, which I think is kind of the point with these Apex emergencies as well. They're just supposed to be like very hard hitting. So until we get MR gear, it's gonna be pretty tough. And that's about it, hunters, for the tough old Apex Zinogre. He's definitely one of the hardest monsters to fight, but a very rewarding solo fight for sure. So I'm wishing you guys the best of luck on this hunt. I hope this video has helped you guys in any way. If it did, please leave a like and recommend it to your friends and consider subscribing. It definitely means a lot to me, guys, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that could really benefit from this video. If I missed anything, be sure to let me know in the comments and I will be sure to address it. So until next time, guys, stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.